Hello guys, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the 6 simple steps. Well, not simple. I shouldn't say simple. All of these require work, but 6 steps to raising anti-racist children. I want to share a quote with you guys from Dr. Ibram Kendi, where he talks about the difference between not being racist and really what anti-racism looks like. And he says, quote, "The only way to undo racism is to consistently identify and describe it and then dismantle it. If racism means both racist action and inaction in the face of racism, then anti-racism means active participation in combating racism in all forms," right? Anti-racism is about taking action against racism in all forms. So the first step in raising children who are anti-racist is, yep, you guessed it, being anti-racist ourselves, right? We have to do the work within ourselves first and foremost before we can even think about discussing race and racism and anti-racism with our children. So if you haven't already, please check out this video where I break down what it means to quote unquote do the work, because we cannot give to our children what we have not first given to ourselves, right? We have to first be an anti-racist human being before we can try to teach that to our children, right? Because children believe our actions more than our words, right? They're emulating our actions and our day-to-day behaviors and choices more than they are listening to our, conversations here and there and a couple children's books sprinkled throughout their library, right? Okay, cool. Next step. So the second step to raising anti-racist children is to start these conversations early. I know there is a myth out there to be colorblind, to pretend that race and differences don't exist or they don't matter, but that's not the case, okay? We are in 2020. We are still dealing with racism. It is alive and well, and we have to take this seriously as parents. And the biggest thing we can do is start these conversations early, because here's the thing. Research shows us that by as early as 2 years old, children can develop racial bias, and then by 5 or 6, children are starting to identify themselves as being part of a certain racial group, and around age 9 or 10, they can start to develop racist attitudes and beliefs. So we want to be working in a very active, intentional way as parents to start these conversations early. So for the little ones, it looks like pointing out, acknowledging, celebrating racial differences in a respectful way. And then as they get older, 4, 5, 6, when they start to enter into elementary school, it's about talking to them about the content that they're exposed to, right? What they know about the protests or what's going on in the world. What questions do they have? What concerns do they have? What are they hearing about in school, right? That you can maybe help explain to them, right? Because here's the thing, is that children are naturally curious. They want to master the environment around them, and what they will do in order to master and understand the world around them is they come to explanations about why things are the way that they are. And if we're not having conversations regularly with our children about their explanations that they might be making about race, we run the risk of them continuing to have these biased narratives and essentially continuing the cycle of racism. So by not talking about race, you are inadvertently teaching your child race is a taboo topic, and you are actually, in fact, helping to perpetuate the cycle of racism. So we must start these conversations early in terms of teaching our children that all races are equal. Yes, we live in a very diverse community, and that is beautiful, right? That is something to be celebrated, acknowledged, and happy of, right? And that just because we have a certain skin color, that does not mean we are automatically superior or inferior to other people, right? We are all equal, right? And everybody should be treated as such. And you want to be very open and honest that you don't stand for racist behaviors, right? Or ideas, that you don't think that that's fair or that that's how people should treat each other. And you want to take a stand for your child and model that for them so that they can do the same at school, at playgrounds, and wherever else they find themselves. Now, during these conversations, don't overdo it, okay? Keep it simple, right? You don't want to stress them out or create inadvertently some stress about the world, but you do want to be honest. And if you don't know the answer to their questions, you want to be honest about that as well. Wow, that's a great question. I'm not sure about that. Let me get back to you, or let's learn together about this. I think this is such a wonderful question that you have, right? You can treat this as an open dialogue that is nothing to be afraid of or concerned about. You can be very simple. You want to start with trying to understand where they're coming from, to possibly dispel any misconceptions that they have, and to also just get a sense of what information they know, what they might need to know a little bit more about, or simply not add any more to it, right? It just really depends on where they're coming from, what their age is, what experiences they've had. The thing to keep in mind is that we must, as parents, have these uncomfortable conversations with our children on an ongoing basis, okay? This is not about, okay, 1 or 2 conversations and then we're done, right? Or, oh, we're just talking about this because current events. No, these are conversations we need to be having with our children throughout their lifespan, because here's the thing. If we don't shape our children, the world will do it for us, right? And we want to be having these open, difficult, uncomfortable conversations so that we can create a space that feels safe, right? That feels welcoming of having questions about race and all the complexities and all the nuances to this topic. The third step to raising anti-racist children is to prepare them, empower them through role-playing these situations of how they will take a stand if they witnessed racist bullying, or if they were the victim of racist bullying themselves, right? What would that look like? You want to have a, loose script or a default response that they can fall back to on these stressful experiences, right? And so you can say, how might it feel for that child to hear those words, right? How might they be feeling? What might you do, right? And so you can start to teach them what's the things that they can say if they feel safe enough to say it, the things that they can do, like telling an adult, right? Or helping that person who was a victim themselves, helping to comfort and support that person. But you want to help equip them with the knowledge of how to respond in these situations. You don't want to act like it's just never gonna happen and we can just be quiet about it, because it just so might happen, and they need to be prepared about it, and they need to feel empowered. And if it happens in situations where they don't feel prepared and they come to us with their experiences and their questions, well, then those are great teaching moments to then prepare them. Okay, what might we say in the future, right? Or if they themselves were someone who offended another person, how can they go about repairing that process, right? What might they do differently in a different situation? And then how can they take steps now to repair that relationship with that person? These are all important conversations to have and role play with your child so that they know what to do. The fourth tip that I have for you guys on raising anti-racist children is to diversify their experiences. Now, of course, that means to diversify their toys, their children's books, their TV shows, their movies, all the media that they're consuming is very, very important. But I don't think it's enough. I think we need to create an active, and really being active as parents, to create a diverse life experience, right? This needs to sort of be integrated into their daily life. Now, this doesn't mean, watch this video and then go run out and have some black friends as an act of tokenism, right? This is not, a checkbox that we just check off. This is something that needs to be intentional. It needs to be authentic. And I think it starts with us as parents knowing that we have a natural tendency to seek out people, befriend people, be surrounded by people who look like us, who sound like us, who behave like us, and then taking active approaches to expose ourselves to people who don't look like us, who don't sound like us, who don't behave like us, and to help our children have those experiences as well, and in a very authentic way. So that could start by, us as parents being very mindful of how we interact with other parents, like at the playground, or at other community events, right? Do we tend to gravitate towards white parents or the parents that look like us, or do we get out of our comfort zone a little bit and start conversations with people of color, right? Do we do those things? How do we feel when we do those things? And again, this is something that's going to take practice, right? It's going to feel uncomfortable maybe at first. You will get used to this the more you practice it. It will become more authentic, more comfortable. But you have to first get uncomfortable and do the hard things, do the things that your mind wants to tell you not to do. And again, that doesn't mean go rush out and go try to make as many black friends as you can, right? Because that would be inauthentic. That would be doing it for the wrong reasons. And then give those experiences to your child, whether that's, you know, exposing them to a diverse summer camp or diverse places of worship or restaurants from, you know, different cultural backgrounds, or community events, festivals, museums. I mean, you might need to be intentional about this. This might, you know, if you live in a predominantly white neighborhood, you probably will need to travel to other diverse locations, but I think it's worth it. If you want to raise anti-racist children, they need to be comfortable around multiple different races. It's just the bottom line. And tip number 5, which I think I'll make a longer video about this, but you want to teach them how to socialize with people of different races that might not look like them or act like them, but you want to do that through modeling, which I talked about in the previous tip, right? You want to start from a place of openness, of curiosity, of wanting to learn, and asking open-ended questions, and because you want your child to come from that place too when they're around children who don't look like them, right? And so they need a lot of modeling and guidance. And so we first as parents have to learn, you know, how do we start up conversations with other parents, whether they are in the same racial group as us or not? Like, what does that look like? How can we do that? I think some of us tend to, at least from what I noticed in my community, we tend to shy away from socializing from parents, and I think especially from the parents who don't look like us. And so we have to take active approach to model this for our child so that they are comfortable with socializing with kids that don't look like them as well, of course, right? And the 6th and final tip that I have for you guys is to be careful not to instill fear in your child, right? When we are raising anti-racist children, we want to empower them. We want to instill in them the belief that they are leaders, right? That they are agents of change, that they can affect and have power over their environment and really take a stand against racism. And so along those same lines, we want to be careful not to instill too much fear in them and taint their, you know, the beauty of childhood, right? And because that can really negatively impact their development. So you want to emphasize the idea that they are safe, right? That they are safe, their caregivers are safe, and that they can always come to you if they have any questions or any fears or any concerns, right? That this is an open place where we welcome all kinds of dialogue, even if it makes us feel a little comfortable, and even if we don't have all the answers to the questions right away. And along those same lines, it's really important for us as parents. I think I'm going to do a longer video about this, but as we do this work to become anti-racist, it's very taxing, right? It's very emotionally taxing and laborious work, and it is lifelong work. It's something that we're never truly going to be done with. And so thinking about it in terms of being a marathon, and this is not a sprint, so we are doing things intentionally, and we are also being mindful to take care of ourselves, right? To pour into our own cups so that then we can pour into our children and our families and our communities as a whole. If you haven't already, be sure to check out my playlist. It's called Let's Talk Race, and I have a lot of other videos on this topic. I will be adding to them, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.